Then the next step would be, once the child has mastered that process of drawing water, we can even use what we call the task analysis method, whereby you go step by step on each particular activity, so that once the child moves through one step to the other, then at the end of it all, this child should be able to accomplish the task. And also, once the child has now mastered how to draw water, then introduce the sponge and the soap, so that the child is able to get the soap it in water, and then apply it on the sponge, because you should have introduced the sponge and the soap, and therefore this concept will not be very new to the child. And therefore the child gets soap, puts on the sponge, and then tries to apply on the body the sponge that is already having soap, so that the child learns to apply the soap and the sponge to scrub, to rub, and clean herself all over. And after, this must be taken into consideration, that when the child is bathing, she or she must take conscious of very sensitive parts of the body, because some children may forget to take care of sensitive parts of the body, and this may cause some bit of unrest, because at the end of it all, even though the child may have bathed, he may probably be smelling, because some parts of the body may not have been taken care of. So it is you as the teacher to help this child identify the most sensitive parts, for example, in the armpits, around the private parts, in the face, in the ears, so that the child is able to take care of himself thoroughly. And then at the end, help the child after he had applied soap on his body and the sponge, then guide the child that after doing that, the sponge has to be put aside. Then the child draws water to apply on the body in order to remove all the soap that would have been on the body. And once that is done completely, then help the child to get a towel, because at the end of it all, it is important, if the child has a towel, introduce the concept of a towel, it is used, so that the child is able to rinse himself up, and then to clean up, to remove the water from himself. And having done that, remind him once again that once all that is done, he has to wash the sponge. He has to wash it clean, to remove the soap, and then clean the basin or the trough, so that it is kept clean. And at the end of it all, this has to be taken back, and therefore collect all the utensils, the materials that have been used during the bathing, so that the child is able to have a collection of all these, and then they are taken back to their respective places where they were. Because at the end of it all, it must be confirmed to the child that during the process of bathing, maybe if it is in a bathroom, this room must be closed. Encourage students, encourage learners during the bathing to always close their bathing rooms, because they may leave the door open, and that may cause some bit of unrest. You never know during the process of bathing who might be passing by. Once bathing is done, then help the child to get back to the dressing room, or his or her room where her clothes are, so that once the child gets there, he will definitely get to smearing or applying some jelly or Vaseline. This is another aspect, because after bathing, the child has kept back the materials, the trough and the sponge and the soap and everything. Then the child has to apply what we call Vaseline, or this would be jelly, depending on either which body lotion the child has or is around. First and foremost, when it comes to body lotions, you have to help the child to identify which body lotion is going to apply on himself. And identification means you must be having different tags that are probably attached to some of those if you have quite a variety of them. And then help this child or the student to know that maybe he wants Vaseline, and then get the Vaseline container, try to demonstrate opening with the child or the student. And once the child or the student has opened the Vaseline, demonstrate using your finger to draw or to get the jelly, put in the palm, try to rub it around the palm so that it is evenly spread on the arm, in the palms. And once that is done, then demonstrate to the student or the child that once this Vaseline has been spread over the palm, then you have to apply on the hand, the whole hand, upwards towards the elbow. You demonstrate both hands so that because both palms will be having the jelly, and therefore the child has to apply on all. And if that is done, he can again draw another jelly, put in the palm again, spread it, try to squeeze in the hands and spread all over, and then apply in the face. You must put emphasis on the quantity of jelly or Vaseline that is taken. Otherwise, the student may get the whole Vaseline and put on the body, and therefore it becomes too much on the body. And therefore, the student must be guided that he just needs to take some little quantity so that it is applied on the face and on the hands and even on the legs. And once that is done, then guide the student to get the dressing code that he has to put on. Because it would be ideal that the student does this before he even dresses up. Because sometimes you may fail to know that maybe at the end you need to fold or to remove to fold so that if it is short sleeved or whatever to apply and wear. But it would be ideal that maybe you do it depending on the level of deaf blindness. If the student or the child is completely deaf blind, totally deaf blind, then you may need to work closely and guide this learner how to make it. And then once the application of jelly is over or Vaseline is over, then lead the student or inform the student, talk to the student that now that we have finished applying Vaseline on our body, we are now moving to the next step, and that is having maybe a cup of tea. When you are taking this children or this child for a cup of tea, you must inform this child that it is now time for us to go. We sit in the dining room for a cup of tea. And when you get to the dining room, already set, then make sure that the child sits down. And once you have sat the child down, you should help this child to identify the chair where he's going to sit. And once the child has sat down, then help the child, orient the child about the utensils, the items that are on the dining table. What is presented before this child? Is it a cup of tea? Is it a flask? Is it a cup? Is it a glass? Are there spoons there? Are there forks? Is there an accompaniment that is going to be used during the process? And therefore, all the things must be oriented to the student or to the child so that he or she is aware of what is presented before him. Because it is very important during the process of serving tea that the child understands what he wants to take and where is it placed. There has been always a confusion that some people even overcrowd the table to the extent that the child may fail to know what is where. And therefore, you must be very specific in this case, so that you help the child demonstrate to the child that this is where the cup is, this is where the flask is, this is where the spoon or the cutleries are, this is where maybe the accompaniment is. It could be maybe a loaf of bread, it could be maybe matoke, depending on whatever has been presented to the child. So that the child knows that if he's drawing or extending his hand on the left hand side, he knows maybe here I will be stretching towards the flask. If he stretches his hand on the right hand side, maybe he knows here I will be getting a cup. And therefore, demonstrate to this child that the flask is here, the cup is here, sugar is at this particular point, maybe the sugar bowl, and then demonstrate how you are going to get that milk, maybe the water from the flask, pour in the cup. You have to do this interactively with the student, because the student must be aware where these particular items are. And then at the end of it all, it is very, very, very important that the child gets sugar. He has already put the sugar, he has stirred in the cup, and once that is done, then you encourage the child, demonstrate to the child that now tea is ready. You can now get a cup and then take your tea. And once that is basically done, you have to congratulate the child. He has to do it over and over so that he gets to know the routine, so that he is able to follow the sequence of feeding himself at the end of the day.